everybody, this is Hammer Striker here. Today we're going to be talking to you about this laser blaster. Oh wait a second, that's the Beretta Neos. I've got to stop storing these two near each other in the safe, they look so alike. Well, it's out, so let's go ahead and do the review. This is Beretta Neos. It's a 22 Rimfire 22 long rifle pistol. It's very unique. It was styled in their Italian factory by one of their Italian designers, but the technical design and the manufacturing actually takes place in the United States. Before we go too much further, I'll show you that it's unloaded. There you go. This gun comes in a couple variations. It's available in stainless steel for the slide and upper componentry, and it's also available in black just like this. And it's available in two different barrel lengths, 4.5, which this one is, and 6-inch. The 4.5-inch barrel version is very, very well balanced. It's comfortable to hold and it feels well weighted. The 6-inch variation is a little bit nose heavy. It's only 1.5 inches longer, but when you're holding onto it, it's noticeably nose heavy. So of the two variations, this one is a little bit easier to balance and feels better in the hand. This one is 8.8 inches long, 5.2 inches tall, and 1.5 inches thick. And it does come with the Weaver style rail on the top. Now I have checked, and most Picatinny accessories will fit on this. They don't fit perfectly tight, but this is a rimfire gun, so it's not like you've got massive recoil that's going to try to shake it loose. But it is actually a Weaver rail. A few of the things that are unique about this, where they had to make some compromises between styling and functionality, is the mag release is on this side. It's right here. So you push that and it'll pop the mag free. It does come from the factory with two 10-round magazines, and they do have a little thumb grip for pulling the follower down to make them easier to load. So when you do have a magazine loaded, it fits flush with the grip. It clips in place. And the mag release does have enough spring tension to make sure the mag drops free. If the gun were right side up, the mag would have dropped right out. And they clip in place solidly. The slide release or slide lock is on this side. Puts up and blocks the front of the slide. The slide release is a little difficult to get to with your thumb unless you've got large hands. So you're going to find yourself using your support hand to operate that. And when you go to release the magazine, you're going to be thinking about wanting to thumb around down here, and in reality you need to use your trigger finger to push the mag release here. The sights on this, the rear sight is height and windage adjustable. It's got a nice U-bar sight at the back, and if I tilt it up, the front sight is a black plastic post, and I painted this dot on it. There are other sights available from Beretta in various different colors, and there's also aftermarket sights that are available that have a fiber optic in them. One of the problem with not only this black one and all the colored ones is you really don't get any kind of a distinction, something to focus your eye on. So I painted the white dot on, and now you'll see when I line up the sights, and get it to a spot where it's not on something white, you see it's very easy to acquire. I just use model paint. Sight paint would work just as well. It does have a thumb safety that's ambidextrous. It's operated here, and it's on the other side as well. It's easy to work to turn the safety off by just flicking it up with your thumb. It's a little cumbersome to turn it on with your thumb, because when you're grabbing a hold of the gun and trying to put the pressure to pull it down, you're squeezing the gun, and because it's ambidextrous, you're trying to drive the other side of it up under your finger. So it's a little cumbersome to turn the safety on with one hand, but relatively easy to flick it off with one hand. The other things about this that's kind of unique is the overall design. It's a blowback operation. So this is the slide, this is the part that moves. And this part is steel. And the rail is also steel, as well as the top of the barrel assembly. The grip is nicely stippled. You can see that it's got a nice stippling pattern. It's not overly aggressive. It feels rather smooth when you're holding it, but it's a 22, so you're not having recoil trying to tear it out of your hand. It doesn't feel slippery, and you can get a good solid grip on it, and the back strap is smooth. When you're holding the gun, it's comfortable. You get a 3-finger grip on it, and there is a place to put your finger to stay away from the trigger. There's a comfortable spot right about there. You do have to be a little bit careful though, because your finger is right over the mag release, so when you're resting your finger, if you've got short fingers or you curl your finger, it might be possible to drop the mag. I haven't had that happen to me yet. One of the things you'll want to look at, if you're buying one of these new, it wouldn't be a concern. But if you're buying one of these used, if you look at the back of the striker assembly that protrudes out, it's beveled at the bottom. And I'll take it apart. When I take it apart, I'll show you the bevel, but you can see right down here at the very bottom of it, right along here, it's hard to get the camera to focus. Try it from the bottom. Right there. You can see there's a little gap. That's not actually a gap. The bottom of the striker is beveled in. They had a safety recall that the gun could fire even with the safety on unintended. They fixed that, and they replaced the striker assembly as well as some internal components. You can't just replace just the striker. And the distinction between the two is the beveled one is the new one, and where it's totally flat at the back is the older one. This gun is meant to be more of a target pistol or a varmint pistol. So it's easy to shoot, it's easy to balance, and it has a very nice trigger. Now to demonstrate the trigger, I'm going to load it with these snap caps, which are inert dummy rounds. This is a rimfire pistol, so it's not a good idea to dry fire it. You can damage the firing pin assembly. So these will allow me to dry fire it without harming it with no risk. To chamber it, you just pull back on the little slide and let go. And now it's chambered with the dummy round. The trigger is actually quite nice. I'm going to get this where you can see well. There's very minimal take-up. That's all the take-up there is. And it's a real smooth, light take-up. And then a short break, nice and crisp. There is minimal. The reset is not a short reset trigger. The reset is all the way back out. And it's not a tactile reset. So it's very difficult to feel when the reset has taken place. This isn't meant to be a high-speed trigger, though it is easy to shoot this thing quickly because with minimal recoil it stays on target. Go ahead and take the snap caps out. Back to an empty gun. I believe this is surprisingly easy, though a bit unique. So to start with, you lock the slide back, make sure there's no magazine in it, and in the process, of course, we're able to also verify that it's unloaded. On this side of it, there is a button right here and a wheel. And the button is part of a ratcheting mechanism that prevents it from unscrewing. So you need to push the button during the process of trying to unscrew it to disassemble it. And when you're reassembling it, you don't need to push the button. It's a one-way ratchet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push this button and then turn the wheel towards the back of the gun. And I'm unscrewing a bolt that's holding the barrel and top guide and weaver rail assembly. So I'm going backwards like this towards the back of the gun till it's loose. Once it's loose, you lift off the barrel, slide guide, and rail assembly. And if you had an optic on here, you leave the optic on during that process. At this point, I now have the slide and the firing pin assembly. The slide is under spring tension, so before you release the slide release, grab a hold of the slide and let it go slowly, controlling it off the front of the gun. Now the slide is steel. It's relatively light and not complicated. There's no additional functionality. All of the functionality is actually in the frame and the striker assembly, which I'll show you in a second. Set that aside. This is the recoil spring, which you just pull off. Disassembling this is fairly easy, but one thing it's important to note is under spring tension, so make sure it's in the fire position, grab a hold of it, and pull the trigger. Make sure you don't push back on it, just grab a hold of it. If you push back on it, it may not release when you pull the trigger. So just grab it, pull the trigger, and then slide it off. There's the recoil spring. And here is the striker. This is the firing pin end right there. The sear notch. And then on the back, if I can get this to focus, there it goes. Oh, we had it. Right at the end, it's kind of hard to see in the picture because it's all metal, but the fact that the light shines differently down here at the base of it is showing that it's beveled in. Right in here, it's beveled in. And that's what makes that apparent gap when you look at the back of it. And that's how you can tell that you've got one that's had the recall done. And again, if you're buying this brand new, it probably comes already having the recall processed. I'll set this aside. And then here's the rest of the frame. This is as far as you need to disassemble it to clean it. You can clean up in here with a Q-tip or a pipe cleaner. You can clean anything in here that's gotten dirty. This area usually stays fairly clean due to the way it operates. There's not true gas operation, so it's not blowing gas back in here. On the barrel, you have, let's see, turn it the right way up, nice solid feed ramp and access to the chamber. And then underneath are the guides for the slide right here. You do want to oil these a little bit because the slide does ride back and forth on those. And here you can see the bolt that goes through that holds this onto the gun. And the ramp. Reassembly is just as easy. Take the striker. When you reassemble this, you're going to want to do it with the notch side facing the frame of the gun and the striker spring. And in the event you've laid these two springs down and mixed them up, the striker spring is the smaller of the two because they have to fit inside of each other. So you want the inside spring. Slide the spring over it. Now this is slightly tricky but not overly difficult. What I'm going to try to do, and it'll be a little more difficult trying to do it with trying to show it, but with the flat side facing down, line the spring up, slowly push this back until it clicks. When you're doing it, make sure you don't bend or kink the spring. So just don't be in a hurry, and if I'm not trying to show it on camera, I usually put my finger up here and kind of guide the spring in and keep it from popping out. But if I did that, you wouldn't have been able to see what I was doing. Now you've got that in place, you just put the slide back on by sliding the recoil spring over this. Sliding the slide on, and the recoil spring goes into the top part of the slide. It's easy to want to just set the slide on top of it, but that's not how it works. The recoil spring has to go in this top groove. So when I put it in there, and again it's easier to do it with one hand guiding, you're not trying to keep your hands free, which I'm going to have to give up and actually block the camera for a second. Slide it in there. It slides in very easy. Then slide the slide back over this until you can push it back far enough to push up the slide lock. And that locks the slide in place. So to reassemble the last part of it and put the barrel assembly back on is relatively easy. What I'm going to end up doing is lining these two guides up with the groove at the top of the slide, and right in here, as you see moving, there's a nut ring, and it's threaded in the center, and I'm going to put this bolt stud right here into that. Now it's going to be rather difficult to do that and get it started while showing it on camera because you really need to hold the gun upright so that ring centers. So I'm just going to go ahead and put it on there and get at least the first couple turns going, because it's actually fairly easy to do, but it would be difficult to try to do it showing it on camera. Now I'm turning the wheel, it appears that I'm turning the wheel towards the back of the gun. I am, but in this case the gun is turned over. So if I had it turned the way I did when I was disassembling it, showing it to the button, I'd be turning it towards the front of the gun. But of course if the gun's upside down, then it appears to be the opposite direction. And you just turn it till it goes tight. You don't need to torque it down. The ratchet assembly will prevent it from loosening. So just when it's finger tight. If you torque it down really, really tight, then when you go to take it apart next time, you're going to find it's going to be very unpleasant. And you really don't want to get after this with pliers and a wrench. And then release the slide, close the slide, and the gun is reassembled. So it's a very fun little range gun, and once you take the time to put a drop of white paint on the sights, you've got sights that are actually very easy to see and very easy to use. This is also a very good gun for an initial training, somebody new to shooting, something they can easily shoot, easily hold, not have to worry about recoil. And if you just want to get some trigger control practice in and spend a day at the range and not have to mortgage the house, it's a very good way to do it. So hang on for some more range footage. If you like our videos, give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe. Have a great day.
Back to absorb the reach. Yeah.